Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Little Craft House. For those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Nicole and I'm usually here showing you tutorials all about making polymer clay earrings. Well, today's something a little bit different. Some of you guys who have been here before may have noticed that I use a craft knife that has been decorated. So I have these funky fun knives and today I thought I would show you how I made them. So we're going to put some of those polymer clay skills to good use and we're going to pimp up a knife, making it much nicer to hold, but also bright and fun and colourful and just more fun to use. So I thought I would start by just giving you a little close-up of these two that I've made previously. I have another two floating around somewhere, but I can't find them at the moment. This was the first one I created, the seam in closing it up there. That's kind of quite messy, but the reason I did it in the first place was I made a slab that I absolutely just loved. I just loved this color combination and I didn't want to cut it up and make earrings, so I thought, why not just pop it around my blade, and then that way I get to enjoy it every day. And I just find it a bit nicer to hold. It's a little bit thicker than what the blade thickness is normally, or the handle thickness rather. This one here is it's actually really dirty, needs a good clean. But yeah, this was quite a simple little cane that I did and sliced it and put it around. So we're going to do similar to this one today. I want to do nice bright colours because I find that these lighter ones, it gets really dirty really quickly. I think just because of a lot of colour transfer from the clays once I've got it on my hands and just picking up the knife, it just transfers over quite a bit. So this one I did have some Posca on, and as you can see, it's actually held up quite well because I have cleaned this knife quite a few times and always constantly using it. But yeah, so they're two of my previous designed knives. So let's get on with making a new one for today. I'm just going to use packet colours, I think, today, just to make it nice and simple and easy. I've got a bunch of nice bright colours handy, so we're just going to use these. They're all either Primo Souffle or Primo Sculpey, sorry, they're either all Sculpey Souffle or Sculpey Primo. This one here is Fimo Professional Magenta, though that's the only professional one I think I'm using today. We've got the new colours like Souffle, we've got Turquoise, that one's, I think, is it Cherry Pie? No, Cayenne, and Canary, and Cornflower. I might see if I've got an orange because I think it needs a little pop of orange there, and I'll just see what other colours I've got handy. Maybe a purple. I want to go lots of colours with this one, so we're going to do it kind of similar to this. So I need a few more colours. Okay, so I've added in a pistachio and a burnt orange. So I'm just going to chop up these into some even-ish pieces. I don't want them all to be exactly even, but even-ish, and get them conditioned, and then I will be back. Okay, so the next step is going to be to make each of these pieces into like a little round cylinder plug shape. So I'm just going to do this by folding and squeezing. I want to make sure I get out any trapped air that's in there. So sort of squeeze them as you're sort of pulling at it, I suppose. And yeah, just making sure you want to just, yeah, not encourage that air to get stuck inside. So when I made this knife, I made a really simple cane, very similar to the technique we're going to do now, where I just put all my colours together, sliced it up, and then tiled it around the knife. But today, so pretty much the same technique as what we're going to do for the rest of it, but I'm going to do a border around these ones first. So I'm going to do a black border. Sometimes when I'm doing this technique, I'll use a lighter colour, say like a butter or an ivory, sometimes white, but I quite like the off-white colour. That makes the colours really pop as well. But because it's going to be on a tool that I'm using frequently, and as you can see, it gets really dirty. So I'm going to use black because that's just going to hide a bit of the dirt a bit easier. So I'm going to slice this up and get it conditioned, and I'm going to pop it through the pasta machine and get it down to the thinnest thickness that I can, so on the thinnest setting. Okay, so I'm just going to change the length of each of these clays that I've done, just so that they fit nicely on the width of that. As you'll see, like this yellow one, this one's going to be quite a bit thinner than the others. Oh, hang on, let me show you this. See how it's starting to shred and crack? That's because it had trapped air in it. So that means that when I conditioned it and got it all together, it didn't get all the air out. There's also a bit of colour transfer. Means that all the air didn't come out, so it starts to do that horrible shredding thing if there's trapped air in there. So I'm just going to give it another squeeze and get it back into that plug shape. And I'm just using my acrylic plate here just to help roll them into nice even shapes, because when you use your fingers you get that like bumpiness from between your fingers, so by using this it just keeps it nice and smooth and nice and even. Okay, so I don't mind that some are bigger than others. I actually want it like that, so what I might do afterwards is cut them down a little bit if they are too long. If they are all too equal, I might just trim them down a little bit just so that I've got different sizings. I've got my little rainbow going. Now I decided to cut the yellow, or make the yellow quite a bit smaller and cut it into two. I just think that the yellow is going to really pick up the dirt a lot. So if it's smaller, it's going to be less noticeable. All right, so now I'm going to wrap each of these in the black. So I want to start with a nice straight edge. And I'm going to pop my colour on. And just smooth it onto it as it goes so that you're not trapping any air bubbles. And then chop it off on that side. So if there's slight gaps like that, it's really not going to matter too much. Just as close as possible. When we kind of give it another roll, it's going to help to close up that gap. And if we need to, we can always, if the gap's too big, we can always just slice a little bit extra from the scraps. Come on, behave yourself. And pop that in. Still probably wasn't wide enough, but you understand what I mean, hopefully. But as these colours are going to be layered on top of each other anyway, there will still be black between each of the colours. And at the moment, don't worry too much if there is overhang on the ends. You don't have to chop them off. Okay, so just again, just giving it another quick little roll over with the plate just to smooth out those lines, and I'm just going to try and extend them all to just being a little bit longer than what they are. This will help to thin down the black and make it even thinner border. Now, if you don't have one of these acrylic plates, you could always use a ruler or just anything. I don't have a clear ruler to show you, but I've got a wooden ruler here. So you could just always do it with a ruler. I don't recommend a wood one, but if you've got an acrylic one, and you can just go sideways like that on it just to help smooth it and keep it all straight and consistent. And again, if you don't have a ruler handy, just you could use anything like a plastic container lid or something like that, or just use your fingers and just roll it out. You're just using more of your palm of your hand, and then that way you won't get those bumps. Right, so now comes the stacking bit. I still haven't chopped off all those ugly ends yet. I'm going to just leave them all as they are for now. And I'm just going to start stacking my pieces. So I'm going to choose the end where I can kind of see the colour. Once we get them all stacked on top of each other, we're going to chop off both ends anyway to get a nice straight starting point. So those little scrappy ends can just stay on for now. And I'm going to make sure that I fill any of those little gaps there with, say, like that yellow. And we're just stacking them on top of each other. We do want them to be random, but I do want to be able to just make sure that I don't have, say, both the blues on top of each other. I might put them on opposite sides. And just making sure that as you put them on, they sit in that crease. Just keeping them all straight. Like so. All right, so when some people do canes, they like to make them into a circle. I like to do them into a square. I just find it easier for tiling purposes. And I also like these shapes to squish a little bit and not be circular. So I'm going to use my fingers to start with, just to make sure that they're all nice and straight and in position, and start to close some of those air gaps. And then I'm going to get, actually, do you know what, today, instead of doing it as a square, we might do it as a triangle, because it's already sort of taking a triangular shape. So triangles work just as well as squares. So let's do it like this, squishing them together. And we also want to do what's called reducing. So we want to give it a little bit of a squeeze and a pull at the same time. Oh, I've got it into that triangular shape. I'm going to try and bring it up to being a bit of a point on the top there as well. I'm going to keep doing that squeezing and pulling motion as well as the flattening until I get it down a little bit smaller than what it is. You can already see that it started to extend by quite a bit. Probably going to do it just a little bit more and then we'll cut it to reveal and see what it looks like so far. Okay, so I think I'm about happy with how it is at the moment. Maybe just a little bit more. I'm never happy, let's be honest. Okay, so I'm happy with how this one is now. So we're going to just cut it and have a look and see what it looks like on the inside. I'm going to cut it down quite a bit from the end because I'm just going to cut off all of that scrappy bit. And that looks awesome. So happy with that. That's really good. Okay, so now next bit is now just to slice it all up. I want to slice each piece to being probably, I think I might back this on something actually. So we might just try and make them quite thin like that. So that's only a couple of millimeters thick. So I'm just going to cut a whole bunch like that and then we can do some tiling. Now, if you do find that it's starting to squish as you're cutting, just obviously rotate it around and keep cutting from a different angle each time, and then that'll help to prevent it squishing down. Okay, so I've only sliced up about half. So I've got, probably wasn't even half actually, I've got the rest of that left. I'm going to set that to the side because I might use it for a few things afterwards, but we're just going to concentrate on this for now. So I think that should be enough pieces. I'm just going to roll out some more black and do that again as a base so that, that we don't get gaps. So yeah, just going to roll this one out nice and thin again. So look at my hands. That's just from conditioning up the black clay. That's what I was talking about before with colour transfer. What I like to use is these alcohol wipes. They're 75% alcohol, so they actually do a really good job at cleaning off any alcohol, cleaning off any colour transfer from the polymer clay onto my hands. I also use these for cleaning my tools as well. They dry out quite quickly, but yeah, they work really well for cleaning up because I always get filthy using polymer clay. Probably get more dirty using polymer clay than what I do using paint. So paint and polymer clay, I just get in a huge mess. All right, now I'm cleaned up, I can continue. So yes, this clay is now rolled super thin on the thinnest setting, and I'm just going to tile these pieces onto it. So I'm not going to need it to be too thick because when we go around our knife, not this one, my one without, but we don't need a huge amount to go around. So I probably only need it to be maybe double, like maybe about that wide. Actually, that's quite a good... I'm just going to have a little play around just with how I want to position them. I don't know that I want the two colours to be the same next to each other like that. I think I might actually just do it like this. And if there are some small gaps, it's not going to matter too much because when we roll it out it'll press it all down and fill any of those tiny gaps. Otherwise, I can grab a bit of leftover paste and just chop a little bit and pop it in if I need to. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a gentle roll now just to squish it out, close those gaps, join it all together. And I also just want to extend it out a little bit this way because I'm not sure it's going to be wide enough. I think it should be, but if I just kind of squish it a little bit and just pull it out and a little bit just to make sure that it's going to be wide enough to go around the knife. It's definitely long enough. We also don't want it to be too thick because even though, as I said before, I want it to be a thicker, better grip on the knife, I don't want it to be too big and thick and chunky, obviously. But I think this should be fine. I'm just going to open my knife. So I've got this knife here. This is one that we sell in our store. I love these knives, except that I think it needs the pretty handle. So I'm just going to open this up. And then we'll just make sure that our clay is big enough to wrap around. And of course, it does not want to open easy for me today. And so there's two things to remember, especially with this specific knife, is that it has the cap that goes on over the top. Although I don't use that often, I still need to make sure that we don't cover it so the cap can't fit. But also this little part here, it's a little twisty part, and that loosens up the bit for the blade. So it comes with a pack of refill blades. So when the blades start getting a little bit blunt, which doesn't happen that often with clay because you're not cutting like paper and tough stuff, but if you do need to change the blade, we need to be able to access that little point there. So when we wrap it, we want to make sure that we leave that free and not cover that over. Yeah, that'll definitely wrap around. So what I'm going to do is with my flexi blade, I'm going to make sure that that is a nice flat end. That can be the bit that goes around the top because that way I can trim off the extra down there afterwards. And I'm just going to make sure this is a nice straight line as well. Now, if you're using a blade that you've been using, it's not a brand new one, you'd probably want to give it a bit of a clean and a bit of a wipe over. But this one, it's brand new out of the pack, so I'm not even going to bother doing that. I'm going to line up much the same as we did when we covered each of those colours with the black. We're going to lay it down on the clay. Actually, I might trim that there. And better just make sure that that's got pattern. Yep, perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to line the knife up now. So I'm going to line it up with that, that join mark there. And I'm going to wrap it up. So trying to keep it nice and tight against the metal. And then just going to roll it around. Now, when I slice this, I want to make sure that I'm not going to have that gap there. So I do need to turn it because I can't see because of where the camera is. And that seam is sort of underneath. It's kind of lined up with that blade there. And then, so what I'll just do is give it a really gentle roll just to close that seam. And we'll just trim off that top bit as well. And so now it is ready to be baked. Now, a question I get asked all the time about my knife, when I say that I've covered it in the polymer clay, people always ask about how it goes in the oven. Well, because the knife is completely metal, this has no plastic components to it, so it is completely fine to go in the oven. So I'm just going to bake it like I normally would any of my other polymer clay items. So it's going to go into the oven for, I'm just going to put it on the baking tray, and I'm going to pop it in probably about 45 minutes at the 130 degrees, and then I'll check on it and see how it's going. But yeah, it should be completely fine being in the oven because it is all metal. The only thing to remember is not to touch it when it comes out because it will be hot. Okay, so it is out, it is baked up, nice and hard now, and it is just much more comfortable and prettier to hold and to use. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that this has inspired you to pimp up your own knife and get it nice and bright and colourful and fun. If you do this for yourself, I'd love for you to tag me on Instagram or Facebook so I can see your lovely creation. And don't forget to head over and subscribe to my channel, also to my Instagram or Facebook page, because I'm constantly updating with lots of different tutorials and inspiration on all those channels. So thank you once again for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!